Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life Show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you. And I am so thrilled to have my special guest today, my friend Cheryl Sosnowski, who is, speaking of power, a powerful creator who leads people back to their own source of power through techniques of neuroscience and positive psychology, including mindfulness and creativity to discover your strengths. Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Diane. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, I love what you're up to because you are bringing the fun into corporate. And I think it's amazing about what you're doing. And I'd love for you just to share more about being a powerful creator. I just want to jump in with that right there because that's you, sister.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. It's something that I'm so passionate about, and it comes from my practice in mindfulness and my background in learning mindfulness. And I started doing mindfulness when I had a stress-induced nervous breakdown, and I didn't know that's what was happening to me. And it was through that work, that 5 years of deep mindfulness practice, that I came to recognize that my thoughts and my beliefs and my repetitive thinking are dictating my actions and my behaviors. And I started looking at, what am I creating in my life? And I realized that I was creating out of habit. I was creating out of a victim mindset. I was creating out of fear. I was creating everything I didn't want because that's what I was totally focused on. And so that's what I was creating. And so I said, well, I'm going to conduct an experiment with myself and see what will happen if I start creating intentionally, if I start learning to just stay in the day I'm in and learn to negate those thoughts that I'm having and switch those thoughts and act differently and see how I show up in the world differently, see if things start happening differently. And of course they did. So powerful creator to me is taking total responsibility for your life and changing things if you don't like what's happening, and recognizing that comfort zone that we build for ourselves quickly becomes a prison if we don't start recognizing that fear is really our friend showing up to say, hey, this is the area where you need to grow.
Well, wow. And there are so much juiciness in here. We're going to have to unpack some of this because there's so many hidden gems in what you just said. So I want to actually start with what kind of kicked you off in this, and starting with what has disempowered you, because you had a path that, a lot of people don't share or they get stuck in. And not only was this an experience of yours, but it catapulted you into really where you are now. And you went from this disempowering thing to just really standing in your power. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that journey.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important to share our journeys and our stories because we so often as adults grow up and think, you're the only one who feels this way. You're the only one who's afraid. You're the only one who feels unworthy. You're the only one who's experiencing shame. And the reality is, and thank God for Brene Brown, who shares her message that everyone experiences this.
Right.
It was, I came from a childhood of abuse and neglect. And I had shared with you that I spent a couple of years in my teenage years as a teenage runaway on the streets of California. And by the grace of God, was never in prostitution, never got into drugs. And for some reason, I just was able to really protect myself in that way and not allow those things to happen to me. But I did take that victim small mindset into my adult life. And in my 20s, I lived this really fake life that I think, I see it perpetuating, and I recognize it a lot now when other people do it. I see it. And, I was really shut down and I was pretending to be perfect. I had this fake perfect facade, this fake perfect job. Everything was perfect, but it really wasn't perfect. And then of course, when I had kids, I had my little girl, my daughter, I fell in love with her. And you can't be shut down in all these other areas of your life and open your heart to your child. It doesn't work that way. And so when my heart started to open that way, of course, then that's when all of the stuff from my past came pouring in and I didn't know how to deal with it. And that's what led to my nervous breakdown between my career and my judgment of myself and my shame that I was feeling and my fears as a mother. And that really drove so much of my mothering, that I was terrified that I was going to repeat my family history. And so, of course, like I said in the beginning of this, when you're focusing on what you're fearing, what are you creating? You're creating the exact things you're afraid of. And so it was really this whole, snowball effect of all of these things happening through life that led me to this place of, now you're in this position where you're a mom. That's not going to change. That's not going to go away. How do I want to show up for my kids? How do I want to show up for myself? How can I change myself? Because no one is going to change me for me. I needed to stop looking at all of the external things around me for my source of power and for my source of happiness and for my source of validation. And when I started looking inward, that's when I was able to step into my own place of power and use my past to give me a lot of strength and courage and compassion, and also a lot of motivation that, no, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be a statistic, and I'm not going to raise my kids to just repeat that cycle. So
right.
That's the story.
I love this so much because, for our listeners, in fact, if our listeners are driving, I invite you maybe just to pull over for a moment and just really take this in, because there's so many of us who had as part of our path where we feel like we have to be perfect, that we have to feel like, they could look at us and go like, oh, they got it all figured out. But they don't get to have a peek behind the scenes of the journey and the things of, judgments of our own self that we've gone through, and really times where we've given our power away. And part of why we are experts in this now is because we have had an expertise and experience, right? And what it is that we have done in this. And so it's so important for people to really notice where they are not incongruent with themselves, where are they really being hard on themselves, and how they can look at things differently. And when you are not showing yourself, there is a lot of fear that can pop up in there. And I love now how you are designing your life. Like, you're not just letting it happen. I love that 100% responsibility, because really that's it. It's up to us to decide how we're going to live our life and to make those changes. And if we don't know how to do that, that's where we want to be able to ask for help, whether that's in coaching or mentoring or in some of the projects that you're up to really ask for that support, because it really is right there in front of us. And I'd love for you to share about how you were able to turn around fear into actually being a motivator.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It took practice. It takes practice. And so it all started with mindfulness. Well, I've always done art. And so these two things marry together for me. And because art, I really believe is, well, and I'm not the only one who believes it, Jung believed it, that it's dreaming with a paintbrush, that your unconscious comes out visibly for you to see. And you can analyze these images and these things that come out, and they always make sense, and they always have a message, and they're always really powerful for you. And it's really a tangible way for you to work with the things going on, to address your fears and to see them on a page and see what it looks like, and allow that to come out of you. And it's really that allowing, that it's a sense of stepping into an unknown. It's a sense of tangibly stepping into a bravery, because it is scary to show yourself and allow that vulnerability to show up on a page, first of all. So I do it with art, first of all. Second of all, I do it with mindfulness. And, mindfulness, recently I had a conversation that somebody asked me what the difference was between mindfulness and meditation, because I teach mindfulness in a way that it's not something you do with your eyes closed. It's a way that you show up in the world all the time. And anytime that you're aware, you're being mindful. And so you can really apply that awareness to anything that you're doing anytime, especially to fear. So fear obviously is a good thing. It tells us, if something dangerous is about to happen, that we don't have to sit there and analyze for a long time. I wonder if this scary person coming at me is really going to hurt me. Like, we know we need to fight, or we need to run, right? We know we need to do.
Make some decisions
exactly, quickly, without having to analyze it to death. But in most of our life, though, it really disempowers us, because we create what we are fearing, and instead we create what we're fearing from a point of view of like law of attraction stuff. You create what you're believing, what your energy is, what you're fearing the most, what you're thinking about the most is what you're creating. When you feel like this edge of growth that happens, and I think we all get there, that there's this leap that you need to take from where you are to where you want to go. And that's that fear that I'm talking about, that you address. And it's a choice that you have to make, that you're either going to stay where you are and stay in your comfort zone, which is really just a prison. And it doesn't stay comfortable very long. You have to change. And it's really using that fear as an indicator that you're headed in the right direction. So I know that if I feel that sense of butterflies, or I get that feeling of, oh, I don't want to do this thing, that I know, oh, that's exactly the thing that I need to do. That's exactly the thing I need to face. It's exactly the phone call I need to pick up and make. It's exactly the person I need to email and reach out to. It's exactly the networking event I need to show up to, whatever it is. And never once have I ever said, oh, I wish I didn't go and do that thing that I was afraid of. Never once, not once. I have, however, said lots of times, oh, I should have listened to my intuition. I should have trusted myself. And It's really that difference of learning to trust yourself and to trust that fear, and let that fear be an indicator that it's fuel for you. It's fuel to drive your life, to help you grow and expand.
Right. Well, and I love this expanded version of fear, right? So many times people think of fear as just like, being scared, right? But this getting out of your comfort zone. And, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about fear in terms of procrastination, which you were starting to talk about, and also about having fun, right? The hidden fears that are there that we maybe don't identify as fear, but they're holding us back.
Yes. Fear wears a lot of faces and a lot of different masks.
We should talk about the facade of fear.
It's totally the facade of fear. And it's tricky how it shows up, because sometimes it can blatantly show up as fear. You feel afraid and then you just don't do anything about it. But when you start questioning your fear, then it will go, oh, she's on to me. I need to now masquerade myself as, oh, I am totally in the mood to just Netflix and chill right now. I feel like that. And these feelings come over us, right? And it's not necessarily addressing the fear itself. It's addressing now something else. It's like a smoke screen. It's like, oh, look over here. And fear for me has masqueraded itself as procrastination, where, I'll do that till later. I'll do that tomorrow. And what's that saying? Like, someday I'll is a place we never get to.
Right. Exactly.
The procrastination fear, the fear for me, the way fear has often shown up is as hedonism, as fun. Like, oh, I'll do this later. I just want to go have fun right now. I just want to go, let's go for a hike. Oh, that'd be way more fun. And so I recognize that, no, that's just fear showing up in a way that I will respond to it, but it's still fear. And so I've learned it's a discipline. It's really a discipline. And it's thinking about, somebody told me a long time ago, don't sacrifice what you really, really, really want for what you want right now. And that always has stuck in my mind as being very, very true.
What a great distinction to be able to have that. And it's so great for our listeners to really hear this, because, when we have those distractions, right, those things that we want to do, right, because they're fun, why not do that? But to look underneath that and go, wow, what do I really need to do today? Like, what do I need to step into to be the person I want to do, to really achieve the goals I want to have? And is it worth it to give that up today, to really, and then to feel bad about it later, or maybe not even recognize it. So the awareness is such a huge aspect to be able to see. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about creativity, because this is, you're bringing this creativity into the workspace. How did this come about, and what's your definition of creativity?
Oh, my definition of creativity is life. Creativity is everything you do. It's how you think. It's every choice you make is creativity, if you're not operating out of habit. So I really think for me, creativity is any time you learn to make a different decision than you would normally make, you're being creative. Anytime you come out of your habitual mindset, you're being creative. And you develop the ability to connect things that don't necessarily go together. And it starts to become a habitual way of thinking, that you start thinking this really out of the box way of thinking. Mm-hmm. And I came from corporate America. I worked in corporate America for years in management. And so I understand the stress that's in corporate America, and no offense to anybody listening, but the low EQ that's in corporate America. And, and it's not our fault. We aren't taught these tools as kids to be mindful. And we're certainly not taught as children to, oh gosh, I love you showing up as your authentic self. You know what? This is great. You just be your little self over there. We are not taught that way. We are taught, no. You need to conform and adjust to this tribal mentality of your peers or your family or wherever it is you're trying to fit into. And then we grow up and we still try to operate from that space. And we forget how to have fun, and we forget how to be ourselves. We forget how to speak up and speak in our own authentic voice. We forget to laugh at ourselves. We forget to give ourselves permission to fail, that it's okay. We don't have to be perfect, because there is no perfect. There's just no such thing. And so for me, creativity is really about teaching people that creativity is not about drawing. It's not about painting. That's the tool that I use. For other people, it might be how you show up in work. It might be how you show up in the kitchen when you're cooking, or how you engage with your spouse or your children or your partner, how you love to exercise, or how you love to sing or dance or play a musical instrument or write. There's a billion ways to be creative. As many people as there are that many ways to be creative. And it's really just about exercising this space of curiosity and play, and having this what if. What if I try this? What if I do this instead? What will happen? And just having this kind of an experimenter mindset to just see what happens if you try. And I think in the workplace, it's really important for, people who want innovation in the workplace and want people to be happier at work. When you allow people to have permission to fail and have permission to play and try and put A together with B and see what happens, that's where innovation comes from. And that's where great inventions come from and great ideas come from, and allowing that space for people to be ridiculous with their ideas. It's not only fun, but it's also where you get genius ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. This reminded me of, I remember hearing part of Sarah Blakely's story with Spanx, that her father required her and her brother to fail every single day, and that they had to report their failure at dinner, that they had to come up with something new every single day. And that failure was the goal. Like, it wasn't the success or whatever. It was failing, because that meant they were trying something new. They were going outside the box and having that happen. And look, here she is, billion-dollar company. Those many failures over time, I love this saying about that, success and failure aren't on separate roads. They're on the same road, that failure is part of the journey of success. And so when we look at these from a different perspective, I'm hearing you saying around the creativity that there's a conscious aspect of being creative, right? You're noticing what's happening. You're really getting outside of yourself to see things in a different way and to have that expression happening in creativity. I'd love to hear about, the creativity aspect of things. What about your strengths? Like, how is it, like, some people will say, like, I'm not that great in art, or I'm not that creative. And, we all have these different strengths, and how do those come into play with creativity?
Absolutely. I love that you asked that question, because that's my other passion, and also what I teach people is their character strengths. And when you know what your strengths are, you suddenly make so much sense to yourself. And when you know what other people's strengths are, they make so much sense to you. So for instance, my husband and I are complete opposite on the character strength polarities. My very last character strength is bravery. And it's funny, because people always say to me, well, you're the bravest person I know. And they say I'm brave because I'm not afraid to do creative things, and I'm not afraid to have fun and make a fool of myself having fun. But that's because zest for living is in my top 5 character traits. So it's very natural for me to get up and hula hoop with the kids at the park. I don't care, because it's fun. And so I'm not thinking about it. I'm just in that zone. Whereas for my husband, his number 1 character strength is bravery. He will stand up to people who he feels doing something wrong. He will say something to them. I am very non-confrontational. So he's the complete opposite of me. But once we understood that about each other, I stopped feeling like, oh my gosh, you're so bossy and you just need to stop doing this and that and that. And he was like, you're just acting like a kid and you need to stop doing that and that and that. And we're like, oh, no wonder, it's you. So your character strengths, there's 24 of them. And you can actually take a free test online to find out where your character strengths fall in line in your personality. And research has shown in positive psychology that the more opportunities that you have to show up and exercise your strengths in your daily life, the happier you are. And of course, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's really powerful to know what your strengths are. And it really helps you to understand people too. When you see, I love to do strength spotting now with people and go, oh, that person is really high in kindness, or that person's really high in social intelligence, or that person's really high in bravery, or whatever it is. We all have our different gifts and our strengths, and you can find ways. Creativity is a strength that's listed on the list of strengths. And of course, mine is high. It's my number 2.
You're right.
But I think I redefine creativity also, because I do think that you can be...
Which is a creative thing to do.
Probably. Probably, and I don't even realize it, because again, it just comes natural to me to be creative. But I think that you can show up creatively in everything. Even when people say they're not creative to me, and I get this a lot, I ask them to tell me what they think creativity means when they say that. I say, well, what do you mean by that? Yeah. And most of the time they'll say, I can't draw, or I'm not artistic. And I tell them that's not at all what creativity needs to mean. It doesn't need to mean that. It doesn't need to mean that at all. Right.
Oh, I love that so much. So do you have like a link or something you have people do for the character strengths?
I do. Yeah. At viacharacter.org. And I have if they want to be a follow-up with me, I have my own personal link on there for my business, or you can just go on and take the test and find out for yourself what your character strengths are.
What's that stand for, BAK?
VIA.
Oh, VIA.
Yeah, viacharacter.org.
viacharacter.org. Okay, I'm going to put that on here, and we should put that on the list. And
for sure.
Do you have a special code?
I do, under my I'll put it on the link so you can.
Yeah, if you send it into Carrie, then we'll get it in there. That way people can be connected with you. And because since you're the creative person that brought it out there, that should be connected to you.
Thank you. Well, I love putting them together with creativity and exploring them in a creative way, and playing with them, and strength spotting, and pointing them out to people. And because when you have somebody point out to you something that you deeply know about yourself that's true, and somebody else recognizes that and they compliment you on it, it's not some kind of BS compliment like, oh, you have nice hair, or your eyes are pretty. It's like, I really appreciate your sense of kindness. I really appreciate your intelligence. I really when you say something, or your sense of humor, or whatever it is to someone. Right. They say, wow, this person is really acknowledging me, like real me, not something superficial about me.
Right. Yeah, it's so important. I mean, it's one of the reasons we use bank code in some of our trainings, right? Like, what are some of those things that have people show up to be who they are? So I love those assessments. I'm like a junkie with those things. I think you can't have enough information to get to know the people around you. So I think that is like super fun.
Hey, Diane, I did not know that you were doing bank code. I just discovered bank code, and I'm going to become a trainer. I really love it, because it's the values and the character based. And I think that's
absolutely right. I think, didn't Carrie give you the link? Did you have the victory?
No, I don't remember.
Really? I thought he had given you that. So, I mean, it's just so fantastic to have that, and to have that as part of your repertoire. It makes such a big difference in how we're relating to people. And the more tools that we use, the better it is to support us in getting forward. Absolutely. So speaking of creativity, one of the things I love to ask my guests is, what is your favorite room in your home, and why?
Ooh, my favorite room. Well, my favorite room, I don't know if it's a room. My favorite room is my back porch. And it's because I love to be outside. Okay, I live in Phoenix. I have to say it's my back porch in the springtime. It's just, I love being outside, and it's so quiet. And I do have a beautiful porch. I've made a little sanctuary for myself out there. So there's just plants. And I love it. In the morning, the birds are out there. It's where I spend every morning. I sit out there and I do my morning reading and my meditation, and I have these little ducks that fly in and land in my pool, and I feed them every day. And it's just, so that's my favorite space. My second favorite space, when it's not the springtime, when I could be outside, would obviously be my little painting section of my house, where I can go and sit down and be creative. I have a little tiny studio in my home that is my little heaven in my house. That's just my little messy zone, and I go there and I paint and I create, and everyone knows to kind of leave me alone if that door is closed. So I really like that.
Nice. So other than the obvious with you with creativity, what are one of your favorite characteristics of yourself?
I think my favorite characteristic of myself is thoughtfulness. I think that I'm a really thoughtful person, and I've always been a very thoughtful person. And that is in my character traits, that is my social intelligence, and just always knowing how other people are feeling, what's going on with other people. and making a note, if I'm with friends and they're somewhere and they're like, oh, I really love that scarf, or I really love this tea kettle, or whatever it is, I'll make a little mental note like, oh, great birthday gift. And, I think thoughtfulness is definitely one of my better traits.
I love that. And I'd love for you to also share, we talked about some disempowering growing up. What is something that an empowering experience that you've had?
Growing up or just in general?
Just in general. This was an empowering thing for you.
Okay. You know what? I'll go back to childhood, because even though we talk about the painful things that happened in our childhood, one of the most empowering things that I was able to have in my childhood was the gift of freedom and the gift of using my imagination to escape my terrible childhood. And at least, I grew up in the time where it was go outside till dark and play and don't come home until it's dark. And so that gave me a lot of freedom and a lot of time to use my imagination, a lot of time to escape into nature. And that's still something that I do to this very day. So it definitely empowered me to be self-reliant and to be self-reliant is that word, good self-efficacy, to find my own way and to know when something's not right within myself and to learn to write it, even though it takes a little bit of time sometimes, just to give myself permission that if I'm not, if I don't feel like it's okay, I have that self-efficacy now and the strength to say, that's okay. I don't need to be perfect. And some days are hard, and it's not about being perfect. And it's not always about, sometimes you're just mindful that the day is crappy, and that's okay too, because you just know that this too shall pass.
Oh, I love that. I love that perspective. And, we used to do that as kids too. We were gone all day. We'd go hiking in the canyons and hanging out. And that sense of freedom allows you to really feel powerful, that you can actually make decisions about your life. And I think that's part of the creative journey, is to be able to explore and to do things different. And it comes back to that 100%, responsibility, right? Where you are actually choosing how you're living your life and what you're up to. So I love this so much. And I can't believe how fast our time is going here. So I would love for you to share. I know that you've got your program, especially if people want to step more into having a creative experience. How can they do that with you?
I have developed a program that's called Be Artful and Mindful, and it's a 4-week program that will help you to manage your stress. I call it a stress OS. So it helps you to deal with your stress and learn how to manage your stress. Learn how you're perceiving the world, how you're perceiving what you're thinking about. And then of course I incorporate the art into it, and I do it in a way that it's art for process and not art for product. So it's really all about that brain exercise and exercising both hemispheres of your brain when you do art. It's not just your right side of your brain. That's a big lie. So it's actually just exercising your whole entire brain, learning to rewire your brain, and you can do it in 4 weeks. And so it's a program that I'm absolutely proud of. It took me about a year to create it, and it's out there, and you can find it on beartfulandmindful.com. And I'll offer a 50% off discount to your listeners, Diane.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And we'll put that information into the show notes so people will be able to get a hold of those and make that happen. So perfect. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have any final parting thoughts for the audience?
Oh my gosh, just my biggest advice I give everybody. I work with at-risk teens now to help them know, because you don't know what you don't know. And my biggest advice I tell everybody is to learn to stay in the day you're in. You can't do one thing about anything that happened yesterday, and you can only hope that tomorrow will come, but you can stay in today, and you can live mindfully with intention, with purpose, with power, with poise, with grace, with compassion, and really show up for yourself in your strengths and just do the best you can every day. And that's all you have to do.
Ah, so perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. You're such a beautiful light, and I love what you're up to. And you definitely are thoughtful. I've noticed that just being in your presence, you're always looking at what's happening with everyone around you and very inclusive. And so I appreciate that about you.
Oh, thank you, Diane.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and to our listeners, I just want to thank you so much. Your most valuable resource is your time, and we so appreciate you being here with us. And, community is so important. We want you to be able to share this with everyone out in the world. I also have a free gift of the Reset Your Power. and that is the Life Reset Quiz. And so your liferesetquiz.com is the way for you to have awareness around what's working and what's not working in your life. So make sure that you grab that. And if you have any questions for myself or Cheryl, please tag us, ask the questions. We want to support you. Please subscribe and share and get this out in the world. That's how we have our impact and stand in our power. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. See ya.